Hey, what's up, Canada and beyond? Welcome back, all you ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, grannies and gators. It is Tuesday, July 2nd, and we're going to dig into what is Trudeau's biggest problem right here, right now, on January or July 2nd in 2024. But we're going to start with a bit of an analysis from a global perspective. I know you guys have been hearing about this shift to the far right in Europe. Well, there's some breaking news on that over here. Probably it's probably not breaking quite so much. It's all over being talked about all over in Europe. And I found a couple of really good analysis of that. So I'm going to kind of start out with that here in just a minute, because it's going to really give you guys a much clearer perspective on what's going on over there and how it compares to what's going on here and what Trudeau's problems truly are. And I'm not saying we're not a big problem for Trudeau, we are, but he tries to handle us through censorship, enforcement, intimidation. Those kinds of things that doesn't work so well for him outside of Canada. So we're going to get a chance to see what's happening in some other countries and how it compares to what's going on here in Canada. And we're going to start with sedition. By definition, the conduct or speech inciting people to rebel against the authority of a state or monarch. And that's where we're going to start the discussion, because we kind of there's a story that's brewing here in Canada. It's escalating. We've covered a little bit of it earlier on last week. We were breaking stories about some liberal insiders that were literally throwing Trudeau under the bus, suggesting that he was an actual criminal and should be in jail, almost to that extreme. So the implosion has begun. The season of the sacrificial political lamb, as I projected several months ago, was about to be here. Well, I believe it is here and picking up steam. We're seeing it in the US. It's happening here in Canada. This far right shift, as they call it, I would describe it more as a correction. I've always stated that should be the tagline for this show. We exist because insanity is unsustainable, and sooner or later, this is all going to end. So, got to start with a little bit of maintenance, guys. Like, subscribe, and share. This has been the most challenging time ever to try and get our voices out there, and it's not really my voice so much that I'm trying to get out there as everybody else's, just to get everybody, the people that are doing the work. Those are the people that need to be heard from, and they don't, not everybody, everybody's got a skill set, something that they are the best at in the world, and those are the people that I try to find to bring out to give their information. I'm not the smartest guy in Canada by any stretch of the imagination, but I know a whole bunch of real people who are, and that's where I can serve them with my skill sets and talents and whatnot. But I want to bring up, just before we actually get started on some of the rest of that, I want to thank you guys and make a note here to show you guys the difference in the impact of what you guys bring to the table, for this platform and the community around you, because this is about community for everybody. This is why my platforms will never be behind a paywall, but we still need to fund this. Everything that I have goes into this. I have no more to give in that capacity. So from that point, from the time I produce it, then it's up, it's out there for you guys, and I'm always hoping, and I know it sounds like we're preaching to the choir when we talk about how big of a difference sharing makes. Well, I just want to show you guys here the last couple of days. We're watching this one here right now. There's 56 folks that are here. You can't see my mouse, I guess, but I can. Oh, now you should be able to see it. We've got 56 people watching here right now on Rumble. We had 904 viewers last night, but Friday we had some stuff going on, and everybody was sharing this show out in different capacities. And look at that, guys! We got 7,000 views on Friday. So I know as much of it as much as it sounds like we're beating a dead horse with this, it's incredibly important for you guys to come and make sure that you hit those follows, hit those big bells, turn them green, and I guess I turned off my own notification. Not that I need them, but get connected with us on other platforms. Facebook is out of the loop, but X, I can still stream live on X, and believe it or not, Facebook has banned me from streaming, but Instagram still allows me to stream. So somebody help me make that make sense, right? So it's really, you guys so underestimate the impact that you have, not just for this platform, but for everybody else out there. So if there's a gray thumb underneath of your screen, please turn it green and let's help get this out there. So I'm not going to bug you guys with a whole bunch of sponsorship stuff. You guys know what that's all about, but I'm going to be launching a program here uh, on how to become a part of Team Freedom Maker, Team Freedom Creator. This is, I think, a much more positive uh, way for us to get together and combine things that we're doing in different places into a stronger initiative. So a couple of quick shout outs. Hey Mo, hey Catabri, cool beans. Hello to everybody that's still joining. Am I still in Canada? Yes, I'm still in Canada. I have a real hard time thinking about leaving Canada. I intend to be one of the last ones. And the only way I would actually leave Canada is if I had the inkling that they were about to crack down and put me into a gulag. I'm no help to anybody in a gulag, but I would still be able to fight from our, cousin's country per se if I should need to. But yes, I am still in Canada. So hey, Santa Swab, Curly, Patricia, Michelle, good to see you. Good to see you. 27 watching on X. Yes, we're also streaming on Wimkin um, and LGM.news. So that's all of the places we're streaming from tonight. The reason they do this to us specifically is about 2 to 3% of the people that watch donate. When I was reaching 300,000 people a day, I didn't have to ask for donations. There was enough people that did that kept the show alive, and we were building. When I'm reaching 3,000 people a day, that means I'm running out of craft dinner, and I never know if I'm still going to have software the following week. So it's a critical time to support journalism, particularly in Canada. Even though we're winning in a whole, a big part of that is the independent media that has made it possible for us to still maintain communications because we don't quit. So this is important to support your favorite journalist, even if it's me. And if it is by me by some chance, donate at whatsupcanada.org is the best way to get that kind of help directly to me. So now we're going to get to the fun stuff. Sedition. Sedition. That's what it is in the short form definition. Now I had something else pulled up that I was going to show y'all. Where did it go? Oh, there we go. There it is. All right. So, in a little bit deeper context, what is sedition? Well, I think it's important to have a good understanding of what sedition is, because this is the mainstream media putting a spin on making anything anti-Trudeau dangerous and criminals, making it sound ominous. We heard Chrystia Freeland suggesting that if you didn't vote for her lackey in Toronto, St. Paul last week, that if you didn't vote for her, you were in fact voting for a cold, dark, whatever it was, but it was just an absolute slap in the face to every Canadian that didn't necessarily agree to support Justin Trudeau or their world cabal agenda. So now they're stepping up the narrative. It's not just cold and dark anymore. Now they're looking at it as sedition. And in this particular case, I think that this, as much as it's a negative derogatory term for as a label for average Canadians, this is what they want to prep the field for. That if you're not doing, if you're supporting anything that isn't Trudeau, you're going to be guilty of sedition. We've seen this started to be bandied around, but the reason I'm bringing this up and focusing on this, guys, is because it's made it to the mainstream media. So sedition is overt conduct, kind of in the shadows, such as speech or organization that tends towards rebellion against the established order. Rebellion. That's a word we should be concerned with. And I'm going to talk about a little bit later how we cannot use words like rebellion, the other big R1. These are the things that are going to end us up in really deep trouble, and I'll explain why in a few minutes. But against the established order. Well, Trudeau's the established order, so anybody that's talking against him must be working towards rebellion, right? Sedition often includes subversion of a constitution and incitement of discontent toward or insurrection against established authority. You see where this is going, guys? When you hear this word in the mainstream media in a few minutes, you guys will have a clear understanding of what they are setting up for manipulating the masses again. And I guess I'm giving you guys a pre-example to what I'm going to give you guys at the end of the show, which is kind of a glossary key on how to cipher propaganda, and it'll make everybody much better at ciphering the propaganda and the psyops in the mercenary media and what they're trying to pull on us. And this is going to be critically important when they come at us with the next bioweapons attack. So, sedition may include any commotion, though not aimed at direct and open violence against laws. Seditious words in writing are seditious liable. A seditionist is one who engages in or promotes the interest of sedition. All right. So we've got a clear understanding out there now of what sedition means. And remember this article. Some of y'all may have seen bits and pieces of this article. We brought it up here a couple of times on the show in the past week because this is a significant. This is one of those foundation of a narrative articles. Here we have, although he's an independent contributor, the author of this article. You're going to hear from Justin Ling in just a minute, but this was the initial point of contact where Justin Ling is basically telling the story that allows the label of sedition to come into play. Now, at this point here, he's published a written article on this eavesdropping or overhearing in the lounge at the Toronto Union Station, I guess, and it led to a bunch of stuff. So this is what Mr. Gilbeau was kind of panicking about, and this is the one here. So this is where we're going to hear from Justin Ling himself on. You're seeing the article there now. So we've transitioned from the article in the Toronto Star, which is almost an absolute 100% propaganda, left wing, the most staunch, nasty, liberal stronghold. Like, it is the nastiest of liberal progressive media in Canada is the Toronto Star. But now we're seeing this.
Joins me now. Okay, so Justin, a lot's happening today. What did you overhear sitting next to Stephen Guilbeault?
I mean, I heard the environment minister sitting there in the business lounge of Union Station, hitting the phones, doing outreach, recapping his last few days in Toronto, which involved some one-on-one meetings with several Toronto area MPs who are In his words, he said in one French conversation, "10A." They're annoyed, they're frustrated, and they're tired, and they're stressed out. He was feeling the temperature of the Toronto area caucus to see if any of those MPs were willing or interested in calling for the Prime Minister's resignation. He was trying to figure out what they wanted, what would make them happy, what the Prime Minister, what the Prime Minister's office needs to do to keep this caucus together and to save his own skin, to save the future of the party, and to win the next election. Those conversations were held quite loudly, I can tell you, and within my earshot. I didn't really do much to try and pick them up, but I can tell you that in the hours afterwards, on my 5-hour train ride on a very delayed train back to Montreal, I had conversations with several members of caucus who had not heard from Guilbeault, but who confirmed the details that there is a sedition caucus inside the Liberal.
There it is. There it is. Now this freelance journalist gives this article to Toronto Star. Now here he is on CBC News, I think it's Power and Politics, calling this a seditious caucus, a sedition caucus.
Party, as one MP put it to me, and they are pretty unhappy.
Okay, so you overheard Steven Guilbeault. He issued a statement today saying one-sided conversations taken out of context do not reflect the open and honest exchanges that I routinely have with my colleagues. As I have said publicly many times, the Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, has my full support. Now, Steven Guilbeault was calling around in support of Justin Trudeau. This is an important thing to speak about, because when you say there's a sedition caucus, he is definitely not one of them. But what did Steven Guilbeault and the Prime Minister's office and everyone say to you when you followed up with them on what you overheard?
Yeah, it's really important to note that the Guilbeault was, I think, doing the best he could to try and keep caucus together, although he did say pretty bluntly, I heard him on more than one occasion say that there is a campaign to push the Prime Minister out the door, and that he was not 100% sure that the Prime Minister could survive this.
Did you catch that, guys? There's absolutely a campaign within the Liberal Party to get rid of Justin Trudeau, and Mr. Eco-terrorist himself, Stephen Guilbeault, the biggest bully in the room in the Liberal Party, next to maybe the health wacko. They're all wackos, but the health one, a few of those, and we're going to see some concerning stuff about that in a little bit here. But they themselves, this is them eating themselves, where the top tiers of the Liberal Party are not sure that they're going to be able to save the Mr. Trudeau in the next election. Meanwhile, Mr. Trudeau is marching full steam ahead. Yep, there is work to be done. There is still more to do. Exactly how the words out of CCP China that led to some odd 60 million deaths. But that is a key point, that he is, if he's making this up, he's setting himself up for an extreme lawsuit. So I think that he is over the target on this one.
Ultimately, it was up to the PM to heed those concerns and to respond to them, and if he doesn't do so effectively, he's out of the job. Now, I reached out to Guilbeault. I reached out to some of the MPs who were identified to me as those who may be staging a revolt. I reached out to PMO.
Now it's a revolt. Now they're staging a revolt.
Of all of those requests, only PMO responded, and they didn't tell me much. All they did was confirm that the Prime Minister is making calls to some MPs, but they really did not extrapolate much beyond that. Right. I've spoken to members of caucus over the last 24 hours who have told me that they're starting to lose their minds, because they're expressing to the Prime Minister's office what level of change and reform and action needs to happen. And thus far, they've seen, as one MP kind of put to me in a text, zero zilp, nada, zippo. Like, he kept inventing new ways of saying zero, nothing at all. So I think people are starting to freak out a little bit.
Okay, I want to get thoughts from you and Aaron, but I've also been talking to a lot of members of the Liberal caucus. Most, they want change, though they can't articulate specifically what the change might be and how it could turn things around for them. But loyalty to the Prime Minister is saying it's up to him to decide. You think it goes further. Who are the seditious MPs you've identified in your reporting, and what is the sort of change they want to see?
I'm glad this little trailer came up over here, because if you watched the Biden Trump debate and the post debate panel on CNN, it would sound almost like these are clones using the same language. And these are the stalwart supporters of the liberal agencies in America and Canada that both seem to be in lockstep in sounding concerned about the future of their current liberal leadership, and that it's maybe time to go.
From Trudeau.
So this is really interesting because last night I spoke to one member of parliament who had someone read aloud the letter that Wayne Long published today. He did not have a.
Wait a minute, Wayne Long is that's not who we were heard from about last week. That was saying that Trudeau needs to be gone. He's a criminal, a crook, and literally a foreign operative. That was John McKay, wasn't it, last week? So now we've got somebody else.
Copy of it, but he had seen it at the very least.
Interesting.
I was told that there was several other MPs who had considered signing that letter. Their names ultimately didn't appear on it when Wayne Long sent it to caucus today. I just got off the phone. You saw me on the phone before we started the show talking to someone in caucus who told me that the momentum seems to have stalled on that letter, that people are now playing a wait and see approach. Ken McDonald being the only MP to sort of express support for it. 3 or 4 others who had originally signaled their support for the letter aren't there, and they've been rather quiet. One of them responded basically saying this is the wrong way to go about it. There may be
the wrong way to go about it doesn't mean he disagrees with the outcome of it. He just is thinks that there's a different way to do it.
15 to 20 MPs who are this sedition caucus, but the majority of the Liberal Party, there's 150 some MPs, are waiting to see if the Prime Minister and the Prime Minister's office is willing to reform itself. They have a list of demands. They vary across the country, I think, but the one thing I've heard consistently has been they want to see changes in cabinet. They think there are underperforming ministers. Raj, I know, was just reported and confirmed some of those. They include Chrystia Freeland and Melanie Joly. They want to see changes in the staff of the Prime Minister's office. They want to see concerns from caucus actually being listened to, heeded, and they're tired of the sort of father knows best approach that's been employed by the Prime Minister for now 9.
Oh, Papa San, Father Justin, King of Canada, Father of all Canadian righteousness. The parties, we love you, Justin, but Chrystia Freeland and Jolie, gotta go. And they're making a list and checking it twice and telling Trudeau, you must sit with us and negotiate to some of these terms. But Papa Trudeau does not want to, Lord Farquaad.
9 years in power.
Okay. Justin, thank you for joining us. Aaron, your thoughts when you hear all of this you've written a book on this Prime Minister.
That's all I'm going to make you suffer through on that one. But so what we're seeing here is the seeding of the narrative, the building of the narrative, and the transition of it from just being overhearing a conversation to now it's sedition and rebellion and all of these things. And people are probably pretty curious as to is there some legitimacy to this or not? But this is not this is not new. This isn't the first instance of this happening. This is happening more and more and more by the week. I got another one here pulled up, and for what's happening, what is Trudeau's response to the demands for a meeting to talk about some of this? I'm going to give you guys just a couple of minutes of Street Politics Canada here. One of the other things I just want to make a point of here, one of the neat things that I get to do in doing what I do and sorting through all of the nonsense and the noise to try and find the relevant news, is I get introduced to more content creators that are doing good things. They might be more subject specific, but it gives me the opportunity to introduce you guys to some of these other people that are doing good work and probably being crushed just like me. And of course, every day after the show, There is going to be a Substack that has all of the links, all of the documents, any PDFs or PowerPoints or presentations or content that we use for the show will be on there. So, Trudeau. What's Trudeau doing in response to the demands for this and the leaked email that and the Stéphane Jabot overheard conversation of panic and the general consensus of panic? We'll hear for a second here.
Are begging for an emergency crisis meeting after their embarrassing by-election loss. But Trudeau's dodging them like the plague. That's right. The weak PM is literally hiding from his own anxious caucus instead of stepping up and leading them through this mess. He just doesn't have the guts to face the hard truths. While Liberals are freaking out, Trudeau's burying his head in the sand, dodging the press and avoiding any real response. He was even spotted laughing and dancing at barbecue while his desperate MPs were begging to meet.
That was Friday in Markham, and it was utterly embarrassing. There are allegations out there that he was partaking of substances that are should be illegal if they are not. And if they're not illegal, it's only because he's making them legal, if you get my drift.
Trudeau's stunning neglect at this crucial time for the Liberals is a total betrayal of his duty to lead. More and more MPs are calling for this feckless leader to be replaced. Trudeau's abandoning his freaked-out party rather than facing the music. It's every man for himself now as the Liberal ship sinks fast. But he can't keep running forever. His days of dodging accountability are numbered as demands grow for this failed PM to finally face the consequences for wrecking his party. Trudeau will soon be forced to confront the growing revolt in his ranks. Welcome back to Street Politics.
All right, that's where I'm going to leave that one off. You guys will get the link to the rest of that. It kind of just goes into more a slightly different take on what we kind of heard from Justin Ling here. But this is, usually I don't like to pick on the vulnerable or the disadvantaged, but in this case with the Liberal Party of Canada and Lord Farquhar and his cronies, you're darn skippy I will pick on the vulnerable and the weak right now. And wouldn't you know it, another scandal. More evidence coming out, more issues. The RCMP have actually found millions in scams within the Liberal Party. Now, this is from Scoop Canada. I'm not real familiar with them at this point as of yet, but this is obviously in the National Post. So we'll get a Cole's notes on what they have now discovered. I think I reported on this about 2 years ago from some insider sources, but I couldn't really get the corroboration on it. But
a report by the National Post has shed new light on a contentious $237 million contract award.
Oh, only another $237 million.
Awarded to a consortium involving former Liberal MP Frank Baylis.
Frank Baylis. Imagine that.
During a recent grilling by opposition MPs, Baylis, along with his business partner Rick Jameson, defended their role in the contract to supply nearly 10,000 ventilators during the COVID-19 pandemic. Baylis, who served a single term as a Liberal MP from 2015 to 2019, became a subcontractor in this high-stakes deal. He and Jameson insisted that their efforts were driven purely by a desire to contribute to the national effort during a time of crisis. Jameson, president of FTI Professional Grade and an auto parts manufacturer, recounted how the urgency of the pandemic prompted him to leverage his company's capabilities to help prevent a ventilator shortage in Canada, similar to what was happening in Italy and the United States.
I have to ask if there's anybody out there that has the tech knowledge to look into whatever type of ventilators these guys are building and selling and see if it has anything in to do with or in conjunction with the ventilators that were patented out of the University of Winnipeg Biosystems Lab with Michelle Rempel's name on them. I'm just wondering if there's any connection. I'm not making any allegations, but this was something I was following from the time I got a call from a nurse who says they got like 7 ventilators in their tiny little hospital that serves a community of like 300 people, and the beer bug had been through there months before. But all of a sudden they got, these, tens and tens of thousands of dollars of ventilators, and well, now we know, this dude got the contract. Isn't that convenient?
I really realized this was an opportunity for me to step up and help the country. I was personally motivated to take action and help, Jameson stated. Michael Barrett's recent tweet has brought renewed focus on the controversial $237 million contract awarded to a consortium that included former Liberal MP Frank Baylis. Barrett's pointed remarks underscore the growing discontent with the Liberal Party's handling of public funds and their perceived cronyism. Barrett highlighted that the
Perceived cronyism? I don't know about you guys, but my temperature is going up because every part of my radar says this is not just perceived cronyism. This is theft.
contract, meant to provide ventilators during the COVID-19 pandemic, resulted in many of these critical machines never being used. This raises significant concerns about the
Didn't I just that was what I was reporting on 2 years ago or 3 years?
necessity and oversight of such a massive expenditure. In his tweet, Barrett wittily remarked, "The right choice to put the Liberal Party on a ventilator," suggesting that the Liberals' mishandling has left them struggling to maintain credibility and effectiveness. His follow-up statement, "The Liberal Party now on life support," encapsulates the broader sentiment that the Trudeau administration is floundering under the weight of its controversies. The deal, struck in the urgency of the early pandemic days, involved Baylis Medical, a company owned by Frank Baylis, a one-term Liberal MP. Although Baylis and his business partner Rick Jameson have defended their involvement, claiming their sole intention was to aid in the pandemic response, the optics of awarding such a significant contract to a former Liberal insider have drawn sharp criticism. Baylis's political connections have led to accusations of favoritism and conflict of interest, casting a shadow over the Trudeau government's procurement practices. Rick Jameson, who initiated the contract, argued that his partnership with Baylis was based on the latter's expertise in medical equipment, not his political background. Jameson.
Now, when you start stacking up this level of cronyism and insider conflict of interest, and start stacking that on as accessories to corruption at the highest levels of government, involvement with a bioweapons assault on our own population, that wouldn't be a very good picture for these guys. I'd love it. I mean, I'm all about #NoAmnesty, but that's not looking good for these guys. And when people start on the broader scale, start to see and hear, exactly like, thank you, Mighty Most. This is, confirmation of, this is important what I do. You have never heard about this story till now. There's so many people that will know nothing about this corruption or the involvement of multiple peoples, and I'm suspecting multiple parties, but at the end of the day, they're all still accomplices in the biggest bioweapons assault on an unsuspecting and innocent population.
Emphasized that his previous political contributions were to conservative candidates attempting to distance the deal from partisan influence.
Oops. I hadn't even watched the whole thing yet. How did I know that there was going to be conservatives involved in this? Sorry, guys.
However, these assurances have done little to quell the skepticism surrounding the contract, especially given the underutilization of the ventilators provided. Critics argue that this situation epitomizes a broader issue within the Liberal government, a pattern of awarding lucrative contracts to well-connected individuals without sufficient oversight or transparency.
Without sufficient oversight or transparency, they're giving away. That's just another 237 million for that contract.
This incident is one of several controversies that have plagued Trudeau's administration, including the We Charity scandal and various ethical breaches. Each instance
wash, rinse, repeat
compounds the perception that the Liberals prioritize their insiders over the public's interest. Today marks the implementation of Justin Trudeau's capital gains tax hike, adding to a string of fiscal policies that have drawn criticism and concern from.
I'm going to leave that one at that, guys. Again, the link will be in the show tomorrow, in the Substack tomorrow morning, and you'll be able to catch the rest of that and bookmark it at least to further educate others. Now, this one here, the next one that I'm going to play for you guys, we're a little bit video heavy here on my show tonight, guys. But this one here, I actually listened to it twice today, looking for places where I could just take a smaller chunk, and there really isn't one. If there was a speech or a discussion that every single Canadian needs to hear and understand, it's this one. So I'm going to play the whole portion of this video for you guys. I don't ordinarily do that, but this one is special, and there's a man that I would dearly love to shake his hand.
Forgive me, Commissioner, when I say to you that your handling of this investigation can only lead to the inevitable conclusion that there exists a two-tier level of justice in this country, particularly as it relates to Justin Trudeau. He, his deputy, and other members have responded to committees that no one is above the law, and that no one includes Justin Trudeau. And although no sitting prime minister has ever been charged with a criminal offense, the RCMP has left the door slightly ajar. And I don't have the actual verbiage, the words in front of me, but the report that I had access to when I questioned our current Attorney General at Committee of the Whole concluded that the RCMP would continue the investigation if they had access to further documents. I'm going to explore with the Commissioner what that means when he attends. We've already satisfied the issue regarding cabinet confidences that obviously was not discussed. And what does it say to Canadians? What does it say to Canadians under investigation? Can they simply refuse to cooperate with law enforcement? Would they have the same ability to shut down an investigation like Justin Trudeau did by simply refusing to hand over documents? I think Justin Trudeau is the only Canadian in this country that has that ability. And apparently that's okay with the RCMP. I can tell you emphatically, Mr. Chair, that it's not okay to Canadians.
I agree with him on that statement. It is not okay, at least for me. I'd like to hear what you guys think.
Absolutely not. As I've indicated at the outset, the obstruction of justice charge is not a difficult prosecution. And I put this to the Commissioner that I've dealt with cases where the police have investigated a historical homicide, have put together thousands of pages of disclosure, a trial that literally took maybe a couple of years to start, a trial that may have lasted 30 or 45 days. I have personally completed far more serious prosecutions than an obstruction of justice charge. So it really begs the question, why did they delay for the years that they did, other than they had no political will to charge as sitting prime minister? Are they truly independent? Well, the RCMP Act may differ on that issue. Section 4 of the RCMP Act makes it abundantly clear that they report to the Minister of Public Safety. And it's the government that actually appoints the commissioner. Begs the question, how independent can you be
Who's the Minister of Public Safety? Somebody throw it into the chat.
under those circumstances? These are the questions I get from Canadians from across this country. These are the questions I get from my constituents. Why did it take literally 5 years for the RCMP to conclude that there was no probable case to charge Justin Trudeau with obstruction of justice? And the convoluted way that they tried to demonstrate the inability to close out their investigation from a former prosecutor's perspective, it was challenging to truly appreciate what they were saying. There was a changing narrative with respect to their onus. They were conflating their onus with the Crown onus in terms of producing evidence to convince a trier of fact of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. That has been and never will be the prerogative of police agencies. Their sole mandate, which is an extremely low standard, is there reasonable and probable grounds? For instance, is there reasonable and probable grounds to believe Justin Trudeau should be charged with the criminal offense of obstruction of justice? There are two facets to the prosecution of obstruction of justice. One is, what is the actus reus? What is the actus reus? What did he do to obstruct justice? And I think the evidence is abundantly clear. It's unchallenged. It's confirmed in the report by former Commissioner Dion that he had a political agenda. And he knew that there was a tool available to his then first Indigenous female Attorney General, Minister of Justice, to intervene in the decision made by the Director of Public Prosecutions not to offer SNC Lavalin, who is facing corruption and bribery charges, very serious charges in this country for which, upon conviction, could have landed executives serving a prison sentence.
I just want to interrupt here for one interesting Trivial Pursuit note. What he's discussing right there, that hearing where Jody Wilson-Raybould testified, was the very first episode of What's Up Canada. That was where this journey all began. So I think it's kind of karmic that we are now, 5 and just a little bit years later, and we're circling around to the justice phase. So just fun facts.
He wanted Jody Wilson-Raybould to deviate from her prosecutorial independence and intervene in that decision to offer the deferred prosecution agreement. This was in September of 2017. And for those
2017. This is kind of important. Remember this, and what he's telling her, the chief prosecutor in the country, what she can and cannot do. But you guys probably didn't get the full extent as to why you're about to.
those who remember, and I know that my colleague, Mr. Cooper, actually had the privilege of questioning Jody Wilson-Raybould at committee. And that was followed up with her writing a book. I have read that cover to cover. And it's appalling at the lengths by which our Prime Minister crossed the line between interference obstruction, and allowing her to exercise her independence. She made it abundantly clear to him during that first meeting. That first meeting in September, for those who have read the book, and she may have highlighted this in her testimony, was to discuss a number of other issues, particularly her priorities as it relates to Indigenous matters. Justin Trudeau came into that meeting red hot. He had
Red hot.
no intention of discussing any other issue, particularly Indigenous issues, other than SNC-Lavalin. He reminded her of a couple of things. He reminded her of a pending provincial election in Quebec that he felt would be very problematic if this multinational corporation was still subject to criminal prosecution in Canada. And more importantly, and damning, I would suggest,
Wait for
he
it.
reminded Jody Wilson-Raybould that he was the member for Papineau, the riding by which SNC had its headquarters.
Bingo. Boom, folks. There it is. The big boom.
And when Jody said, "Are you asking me to make a decision contrary to a decision I already made? Are you interfering in my decision?" For any impartial observer of what took place during that discussion, the proverbial fly in the wall, you would conclude absolutely the Prime Minister of a G7 nation preferred the interests of a corrupt corporation and wanted his Attorney General, who wore two hats, which begs the question about the utility of a two-hat minister moving forward.
What he's going to drop is going to be big. But as far as I'm concerned, the biggest boom is yet to come. Hang on.
Wanted her to make that decision in his favor and in the favor of SNC. He backed off, of course, and said, "Oh, no, of course, that decision is yours." But the damage was done. That was the actus reus. That was the act by which he, then followed by PMO staff, then followed by ministerial staff in other departments, ultimately concluding with former Privy Council clerk Michael Warnock, unknown to him, being audio taped in that fateful telephone discussion, meeting, I should say, in December of 2017. Commissioner Dion clearly articulates and outlines all of the attempts to interfere in her decision-making. Jody Wilson-Raybould truly...
Is she still the Chief Justice of the country if Trudeau is doing her job?
demonstrated the integrity that you'd expect from an attorney general who probably felt immense pressure as a member of the Justin Trudeau cabinet. She was mindful of her dual role, and she held firm. Michael Warnock came into that meeting, again, red hot.
These liberals seem to have some emotional control issues, if you ask me, but that's just me thinking.
Purpose, according to Jody Wilson-Raybould, was to discuss, again, other issues. Those other issues were never discussed. Michael Warnock came in hot and made it known to Jody Wilson-Raybould on more than one occasion that the Prime Minister was adamant about this. Now, why is that term adamant important? For the lawyers in this committee, you'll remark, for those who practice criminal law, about the second aspect of prosecutions. We talked about the actus reus. Now we have the mens rea, and that is the intent. And the obstruction of justice is a specific intent offense. So when Michael Warnock comes in to this meeting red hot and references the Prime Minister on more than one occasion being adamant that he is going to find a solution one way or another, is indicative of intent. That is the only.
One way or another pretty much confirms intent by any means.
Plausible legal definition of what the Prime Minister had instructed Michael Warnock to do. Now, Michael Warnock testified and would have everyone believe, as nonsensical as this is, that he took it upon his own self to initiate the meeting. And he was not directed by the Prime Minister in any which way or form.
Still not the biggest boom.
To again put that final element of pressure on her, which is just preposterous. No one believes that. He lied. So when I take a look from a former prosecutor's perspective, the charge of obstruction of justice, I'm mindful of the case law that exists in this particular area, and I can't remember the name of the case, but it came out of the Supreme Court of Canada, which set out the essential elements to the offense of obstruction. And it made it abundantly clear that success to the obstruction is not necessary. An attempt is all that is necessary. And that's exactly what we had in this particular case. Jody Wilson-Raybould held her own, maintained her position, never deviated from that position. Next thing you know, she's facing a cabinet shuffle. Again, a preposterous explanation offered by the Prime Minister and his government that it was because of the sudden resignation of Treasury Board President Scott Bryson. Was she the only high-profile minister that could have filled that role? I don't think so. No one believes that for a minute. She was demoted because she had the audacity to say no to Justin Trudeau.
That's it.
Take a look in history to all the MPs who've said no to Justin Trudeau, who proclaims that he is a feminist prime minister. Another blatant lie. Let's take a look at MP. I'm going to probably mispronounce her name. Is it Selena Chavez? Chavez. Okay. Had great difficulty with the Prime Minister during her entire tenure. Ultimately felt that he was pressuring her in ways that she was completely uncomfortable with. Again, this feminist Prime Minister showed her the door, just like he ultimately showed our first Indigenous Attorney General. Had no difficulty as well with the excellent work that was done by Cabinet Minister Jane Philpott. I believe she was Minister of Health at the time. Her mistake, what was her crime? Her crime was supporting Jody Wilson-Raybould. Supporting her and suggesting that no, the Prime Minister was completely out of line. Absolutely out of line. She was shown the door. And then I remember, I wasn't a parliamentarian back then, but I remember how gleefully the Liberal government and its backbenchers were just gleefully clapping on television in front of all of Canada. Okay, and Mr. Baines is smiling as well, but he wasn't there. But maybe had he been there, he might have been smiling and clapping as well. But I said to myself, what are you so damn happy about? What are you smiling about, Justin Trudeau? You're Canada's first feminist prime minister. And here you are clapping like a seal to celebrate the demise of a very strong, two strong cabinet ministers who had the strength to say no to Justin Trudeau. That's what happens. That's what happens to Liberal MPs who have the audacity to challenge the almighty wisdom of Justin Trudeau. So you're right. I'm absolutely right to have these questions still percolating in my mind, why the RCMP did not complete the task when the evidence was right there. I'm also mindful of the fact that Michael Wernick had shared with us not too long ago that this particular issue was never discussed at Cabinet. Wonder if people remember around this table that actual piece of evidence. It was never discussed at Cabinet, yet we heard from the RCMP commissioner that his request for documents were blocked by Justin Trudeau and the government because of Cabinet confidences. Well, if there were no discussions at Cabinet, then there were no confidences. So that's another issue I need to raise with Commissioner Duhem this afternoon, because I didn't have that information available to me when he first attended. Why was it important for Commissioner Dion to interview 14 people, literally anyone who had something to say about the SNC Lavalin matter? But the RCMP, in their infinite wisdom, decided to limit that to 4 individuals. Can you say that that was a thorough investigation? I think not. And again, when I posed that question to them and their nonsensical response to it certainly didn't satisfy myself, and I'm sure didn't satisfy Canadians.
And that was the point of there was so much to unpack in there, but the one
In
that
Edmonton, they were very busy. First of all, they signed Jeff.
that, guys. Can get to the next part here. Couple of points there. Who's the public safety minister? Dominic LeBlanc. I was waiting for the chat. Nobody came up with it. Dominic LeBlanc. Anybody trust this clown? Appointed. And it's him that decides that it's in public safety and interest to just get rid of Jody Wilson-Raybould and let SNC Lavalin do their thing, and Trudeau's riding, so his doesn't run the risk of losing his seat. And the other thing that I wanted to make the big, I guess, a major point on of what he brought up there was who was ejected with Jody Wilson-Raybould. This lady, Jane Philpott, who was the health minister. Who got the health minister's job? The he, she, it. The Gollum of Canada, the Wuhan Gollum. That became Theresa Tam's position, guys. So, begs the question, was it a setup for some of these ministers so that they could be expelled and replaced? I don't know. I got questions, guys. I got questions. And I'm glad to see Mr. Larry Brock still fishing for answers on the story. That was the very first story, the very first day What's Up Canada existed. It was actually during the midst of that stream that I decided I was going to do this as long as I possibly could. That's why What's Up Canada was born, was the day of Jody Wilson-Raybould's testimony. All right, we're going to wind this up here really, really quickly on a couple of things that are going to plant the seeds for some other things coming down the pipe for everybody. This one, I'm just going to only play a minute or two from Market Mania. This is kind of a follow-up. If you guys caught the whistleblower on the CMHC stuff a few weeks ago. We've been starting to get some trickle information on that. I really want you guys to hear this just a minute or two.
Means that when the housing bubble implodes, as it is right now, that affects the economy massively. So why can't we see it in the economy? Well, the economy is flatlining right now. It's not really growing that much. But part of the reason of why it's still flatlining and growing and not crashing is simply because of the mass migration program. You see, you have to think of mass migration as putting up a veil in front of the economy so that people can't actually see what's going on behind the scenes. They can't see all the skeletons that are hidden back there. So basically, by instigating this mass migration program that has boomed, it has also sent Canada into a cost of living crisis. And it has also sent Canada into a terrible per capita depression that has not been seen by any other country in the G7 or G20. The per capita GDP in Canada has been absolutely crashing, and many different international organizations and media have picked up on how bad this is and are predicting that it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. You see, people ask what the solution is here. And unfortunately, with so much damage done, there is no good solution. The only solution is that you try and educate people and get them up to speed on how the government influenced this housing bubble, how the government effectively crashed the economy behind the scenes and made it more reliant on real estate. And then ask yourself, do any of the political parties, the status quo political parties like the Conservatives, the Liberals, and the NDP, are they going to do anything drastically different to change this? And look at history. See, have they done it in the past? Why are they going to do it now? And you will find out that unfortunately, it doesn't look like it's going to happen. You see, the reason why I have a passion for producing these videos is because it's educating people on how the system works. And once people understand how rigged the system is, how CMHC is not an institution that is helping you buy a home, it is helping banks get bailed out, then you understand that we don't need that institution and we would be better off without it. Once you understand how mass migration puts a veil in front of the economy, it becomes very easy to then understand how it's actually ruining the economy. And this isn't a dig at immigrants. After all, I'm an immigrant myself, so that would make me a hypocrite. Immigrants are doing a lot of the jobs that Canadians won't do themselves. They're filling all those jobs and they're literally living in poverty. So I would say have a massive heart for the immigrants that are here today, because those people are suffering tremendously. In fact, they are the modern day slaves of Canada. And the thing is, I want an end to that slavery. We're doing a disservice to them. And I think it's absolutely terrible. And not only that, the reason why they are doing those jobs and Canadians aren't doing those jobs is because by bringing in more and more workers, you suppress the wages, especially for low-skilled, low-wage jobs. And who does this benefit? This benefits massive corporations that have the cash and have the money to pay the higher wages, but just choose not to invest in their workers. And it's no wonder why you see productivity that is absolutely tanking. This is Canada and it needs to change. Anyway,
Couple more things that I want to add to what he's saying here that are critically important. What they're using to justify all of this migration, and I'm not against migration, but what I am against is unchecked, unvetted economic invasion, which is what we're actually experiencing. I don't have a problem with immigrants, but I do have a problem with invaders that are basically being lured here by an infiltrated corporation and government under the premise that we need more skilled labor. We need to import healthcare workers. We need more skilled labor because we're not generating any damn skilled labor because our educational program is too busy teaching about 72 genders and dildos and sex. So we have no capacity left to teach skills for a solid growth employment force So we have this productivity sinkhole that is self-manifesting, catch-22, keep destroying the education and the brains of our kids and importing others. This is the population replacement that they don't want to admit, or the part of it that they don't want to admit. And this is why they're trying to literally send us into, those that are left are living a life of quiet misery, trying to find ways to survive. Now, after all of this, I want you all to compare notes to this news story coming out of Europe. I think it's really, really important. Again, I ordinarily wouldn't play an entire video, but there's so many parts in this that you'll need to see this one too. I'm not familiar with Sebastian Sass, but we're going to learn a little bit about his take on this, because he is absolutely spot on, and he's introducing us to a new alliance in Europe, that if they were worried about the swing to the right, this explains it for everybody, and why it's not going to just be limited to that. This is going to be a boom one for you guys.
Come on, that's just BS, and everybody knows it. EU as a structure has only one purpose, and that is to be a subservient, a vassal state to the United States. Guys, we have some amazing news. You see, the neocons and the warmongers within the European Union are losing power so fast they don't even know what hit them. I've just made a video, by the way, just an hour ago, about the French elections and why the French people vote the way they do. And I think we can easily extrapolate this to all sorts and all parts of the European Union. That being said, we have a breaking news. It's coming from Reuters today, June the 30th. I think it's been published literally less than an hour ago. And it's about a new alliance that is taking place before our eyes within the European Parliament. That's very good news for us. And basically, what we're about to take a look at is echoing exactly what I've said in my previous video. So guys, let's just dive in, and then we're gonna comment around this news a little bit. Austrian far right, Hungary's Orban form new EU alliance. Oh, how nice, how nice. Austria's far right Freedom Party, FPO, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban's Fidesz, and the populist Czech ANO party led by Andrzej Babiš, I hope I pronounced this correctly, are forming a new alliance in the European Parliament, they announced on Sunday. Why these three parties? Why Orban? Now, let's dissect this a little bit before we move on to the next paragraph. You see, I've been watching Viktor Orban for many years, and he's one of the very few politicians in Europe who I still have a lot of respect for.
Agreed.
The reason is not because he's done something for me, because I'm not Hungarian and I don't live in Hungary, but the way I judge somebody, a politician specifically, is not on the basis of what that politician has done for me, but on the basis of what that politician has done for the people who have elected him. I think that's the whole point, which most Westerners are missing heavily these days. People in the West get so entrenched on, oh, what did Biden say? What did Trump say? Stop, that's just background noise. Look at what those politicians who you vote, what they're doing for you. That should be the only basis on which you judge who you vote for. And that's it, in my humble opinion. But let's carry on. Quote, today is a historic day because today we are entering a new era of European politics. FPO leader Herbert Kickl said in an address to the media attended by Babiš and Orban, convened at short notice in a Vienna hotel. Again, why this new alliance? Going back to Viktor Orban,
key question here that he's asking, why? Why this new alliance?
He's definitely not on the far right, as these people from Reuters suggest. Absolutely not. He is on the right, but he's definitely not on the far right. What his policies have been all about is limit the number of conflicts we get into, look at each situation on its own merits, rather than just, oh, Putin bad, Biden good and all of this childish behavior. Orban has been against that. Orban has also been against open borders, illegal immigration, and probably going to get into that in just a little bit. I think this new...
When you hear that, kind of makes you want him to be your politician here, doesn't it? Pretty similar viewpoints.
Alliance will aim at achieving exactly that and waking and shaking a lot of people back into awakening.
Cracking the satanic lullaby that, Lord Farquaad and his propaganda mercenaries have.
Let's move on. This alliance is meant as a rocket that will bring other parties on board at the European level to join forces and give Europe a better future, Kickel said of the new Patriotic Alliance. Absolutely, this is exactly what I've been saying. Former Czech Prime Minister Babiš said that the new group would be called Patriots for Europe. Now, I've had this conversation with somebody many years ago, and the wording was exactly that, patriotic European. And somebody asked me, so what do you mean patriotic European? There's so many countries, how can you be a patriot for Europe? Now, the answer I gave at the time to that person was, yes, we might all be from different countries, say Austria, Hungary, France, Germany, whatever. But the point being, we all have a European legacy. We all have, in many, many ways, the same set of values, so to speak. Not the values the European Union is talking about, not that kind of values, but...
You know what happens if you attend a European Heritage Festival in Toronto? You'll get beat. I know. I videotaped it.
True values, like religion, like family, like these universally agreed upon things in Europe, at least. Yes, that's what a patriot for Europe means, at least to me. And then we get to the punchline. All three men cited the fight against illegal immigration, which has long been a pressing concern for them. No, not for them, Reuters, for everybody in Europe, as well as transferring more powers from Brussels back to the member states.
Wait a minute. Everybody in Europe's got the same problem as we do, and they want to take their power back from Brussels. Kind of sounds familiar to me. How is it that we could be, globally opposed geographically, but still have the exact same issues and problems and cancers in our cultures and our countries? That's not coincidence. That's far more diabolical.
And that right there is exactly why they've attacked Orban and Fico and all of those people for so long. They do not want to give the power to the member states. You see, the European Union is not what we've been made to think it is, as in, oh, it's just this gathering of people who will all represent your interest, and then we're just going to decide what's better for the collective interest of Europeans. Come on, that's just BS, and everybody knows it. EU as a structure has only one purpose, and that is to be a subservient, a vassal state to the United States. If you don't believe me, well, don't look at what these people say or anybody says. Look at what European actions have been for the past 20 years, and then tell me I'm wrong. Every single initiative, every single war, every single sanction that has been issued by the United States has then been echoed by the European Union. European Union, just for clarity, is nothing but a globalist parliament. I think that's the best wording. A globalist gathering. And nothing more. It has nothing to do with the member states.
They could shut down the European Union, the World Economic Forum, and the United Nations. Not a single nation would suffer. 0 nations would suffer if they shut down all of those globalist multinational corporations that are trying to exert and force their will upon the entire population, and this guy is nailing it.
Moving on. In this month's European Parliament election, nationalist parties capitalized on voter disquiet over spiraling prices, migration, and the cost of the green transition and are looking to translate their seat gains into more influence on EU policy. Let's dissect those, shall we? They're saying spiraling prices. Oh, that's news to me, because you see, I thought the prices were good in Europe. I think we have low prices. At least that's what the media has been telling me. Just last week, I've covered the piece of news where they said, oh, the inflation is just at 2%. I don't think 2% can cause spiraling prices. But you see, they're contradicting themselves from one week to the next, and sometimes even within the same bloody article. Then move on. Migration is not migration. It's not migration. It's illegal, mass, uncontrolled migration. That's a problem.
Bingo.
Not migration in general.
Bingo.
But they're trying to sway the more, let's call it, undecided people towards their camp, which is the globalist camp. And then they say the cost of the green transition. Well, I don't think there can be put a cost on the green transition. It's far too complex to say, oh, this is how much it costs, because it involves many sectors, many variables. Point being, the green transition is good. In and of itself, it is good. But the way it's being managed and the way it's being handled, that is some of the most childish way of thinking I've seen in my life. You see, is the green transition a good thing? Of course it is. However, in order to implement it properly, you need to take into account multiple factors, but two of which are absolutely paramount. One, you need to make sure that the population can keep up with the costs and the transition is not abrupt and sudden to the point where you financially cannot keep up with it as a citizen. And second, you want to make sure that that transition is not disrupting the current way of life, the current pricing, the current logistic, the current supply chain. They've paid attention to none of that. They want to do it all, and they want to do it all at once.
Bingo.
Most people, and when I mean most people, I mean 80% of the people cannot afford to do a green transition like this. It needs time. It will take years. It might take even 2 decades. They need to be patient, but they're not. They're absolutely not. And they want to move away from gas and oil and all of that because Russia bad. You can't sustain an entire industry with green means of, how should we put it, green energy. Not now. You could and you will in the future. Not now. Moving on, we have another quote. Today we are creating a political formation that in my view will be off to a flying start and will very quickly become the largest group of the European right, Orban said. 100%, I agree with him. You see, every single time there's some sort of a revolution.
That's the key word I wanted to stop right there for. I was at an event this weekend and I heard this word, and this word terrifies me. It genuinely terrifies me. People that use this word as a suggestion that any country needs one of these is absolutely a dangerous idiot, and you need to leave their company, part ways in any way, shape, or form that you possibly can, as fast as you can. Extricate yourself from the presence of anybody who is advocating for that big R word, because it is 100% clear that they have lived on video games and movies their entire life, and they have absolutely zero freaking concept of what that will look like. All you would need to do is go and look at real battle footage of how they are destroying men on the ground in the conflict in Ukraine, knowing that these are fully engaged military forces that don't stand a chance, boots on the ground, against a drone and technological warfare being waged against them. And these asshats that want to run around screaming, "Revolution!" These people are the most dangerous people in your community, in my opinion, and they are what is left when we are done using any form of intellect, because they have no intellect if this is what anybody is suggesting, because we have not even begun to empty the toolbox of the abilities and ways to end this shit. But people are lazy. They want the easy button. They want it now. And that doesn't exist. So we have to look at what will work, what is more effective, and what can we do without endangering people and creating that kind of stupidity and frustration. I understand people are frustrated, but we have to be careful about the actions that we elicit through our frustration. And these are where these rage baiters are so dangerous, because they propagate that. These guys that are trying to sell you, offensive ideas, like ideas of going on the attack in any way, shape, or form, get rid of them, guys. Get rid of them. Run, run, run. They will only get you dead. They'll get us all dead.
There needs to be somebody to take the reins. As soon as that somebody presents him or herself, people will join, because people in Europe are sick and tired of this nonsense. Quote, "This will happen within days and the sky is the limit," he said. Again, I agree fully. I think there will be more and more parties, and this new alliance will only grow. And you know what? Let's look at the elections across Europe that have happened, what, less than 2 weeks ago? What was the conclusion? Every single party that supported the war in Ukraine, more aid to Zelensky, all of those parties have lost in that election. What does that say about the European mood? Yeah, exactly. People do not want any more of that. People have realized it's dangerous, and these people in the EU cannot be trusted with your security, with your safety. Guys, let me know what you think.
All right. Can anybody argue with that, given who we just saw was our public safety minister, and knowing who he works for and who these meat muppets in Ottawa actually serve? Isn't it interesting that what will be the fastest growing movement will capture the populace, which is popular opinion that the one world order international rules based order is trying to project as being the most dangerous threat to the world. They're trying to say that public opinion in mass is the biggest threat to the world. That is impetus enough for anybody to understand why this shift to the far right is not a shift to the far right. It's a correction to the right, and it will be the fastest growing thing you will see sweeping across Europe. And the crony system is dying dead on its feet, and that genuinely, folks, is the fastest way to prevent World War III. And final little bit here tonight, guys. We went way long, so I'm not going to play this. I'm going to play Hide the Easter Egg, and you're going to have to find it in my Substack tomorrow. But an excellent little 11-minute video that takes people through all of the different types of propaganda. And maybe we should make a board game about the propaganda, all the different types, and how we beat it. That wouldn't that be fun, as kind of a freedom builder kind of board game, right? I think that would be a ton of fun. So I've just about talked myself dumb. I'm surprised there are still a few of you here hanging out with me. Thank you so much for doing that. I'm working on Thursday's show. Tomorrow's guest night. You guys are, well, we're going to leave it a surprise for guest nights tomorrow. Maybe you'll find it in the Substack in the morning. You get an early view, but 6 p.m. Central, 7 Eastern. Tomorrow is guest night. And on Thursday, I'm putting something a little bit bigger together. You know, if you got a wolf chasing you through the brush, you take out one leg, you might think that you might be able to get away from the wolf, but no. So long as that sucker still got 3 legs, he's coming for you, and he will get you. Here in Canada, the Davos Wolves, a Geneva pack, have had a free-for-all going in Canada under the climate scams, and there's some groups that are having some amazing success with that. and they are taking out one leg of the climate infiltration into Canada. But there are 3 other major legs to this beast of the UN deceit that are barreling down the pipe. And we're going to take a little bit of a deeper look at that. And we're going to start to be able to, I hope you guys, if you're starting to notice a bit of the layout and kind of like chapters as these shows go throughout the week and then throughout the month, is by design. I'm putting a ton of extra work into making information that's progressive, putting stuff together that can help in growing ways. You don't want part Z before you get to part C, right? So last night's show was just literally chock full. You could build an entire movement successively, a successful movement out of just the tools that I gave out in the Substack today from last night's show. So I really hope I get to see some of you guys subscribing over there and getting the hard copy about what we talk about here every night. But that's what's on deck for Thursday. Friday will be Bankers, Bandits, Bullion, and Bucks with Bryce. Once again, our best watched show last week. But that's all I've got on tap for everybody tonight. So I thank you once again for hanging out with us. I hope you got something in this. If you find some value in what we do, please give this a like, subscribe, and a share. And if you do consider donating to your favorite journalist, let me know when I'm up. I'll know when I'm your favorite journalist when I see a little donation come in there from you guys. So I love you all. Stay Canadian, stay mighty, and we got this. It's just going to take some time and a lot more work, but we are getting better and better every single day, every single week, and you are becoming armed and fruitful warriors or creators and this is where it comes from. I don't want to be a freedom fighter anymore. I'm tired of fighting. I am a creator at heart. I've been a creator my whole life. I would rather create freedom. And what I realized here very recently is, in a country with 1 million laws on the book, we're not fighting for freedom. We're fighting for the level of slavery we were most comfortable with about 10 years ago, probably. That's what we're fighting for. And I think that there's a much better path forward in creating our own freedom. And there's no easy way to do that, but I think it's necessary. And it's time to figure out what it looks like to do that. And first thing is the triage, get rid of the clowns, the meat Muppets, and then we do in Iceland. And that's how we get rid of them all. And that's how we win. All right. I love you all. Stay Canadian. Stay mighty, my fellow friends, patriots, family, and hostages. We'll see you at 6 p.m. Central tomorrow.